Hey there! Today is Friday. That means it's Free Ride Friday, where we give away a free ride to the $100 MBA Training and Community. Every Friday, we give away a lifetime membership to the $100 MBA to anyone who's left us an iTunes rating and review. If you want to enter our weekly random draw and win a lifetime membership to over 180 video lessons, interviews with experts, workbooks, a community forum, and a whole lot more, just leave us an iTunes rating and review. If you're on your iPhone, just click on the cover art and click on the link that says give us a rating and review. If you're on any browser, just go to 100mba.net/show and you automatically enter the weekly draw. And also, by leaving us a review, you show your support for the show. Speaking of the show, let's get into today's episode. Let's do it. Welcome to the $100 MBA Show, the business podcast that cooks up a fresh new business lesson every single day with our daily 10-minute business lesson for the real world. I'm your host, your coach, your teacher, Omar Zenhom. I'm also the co-founder of the $100 MBA, a complete business training and community online. And in today's episode, you will learn how to create a killer slide presentation. Whether your presentation is for a public speech or for a live webinar, or a recorded one for that matter, a great keynote or PowerPoint presentation can really add a lot of value to your performance. And I'm going to give you some great strategies, some great tips today on how to create a killer slide presentation. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get down to business. Today's episode of the $100 MBA Show is sponsored by Webinar Ninja Live, the first national webinar conference in sunny San Diego on September 26, 2015. Learn from the masters of webinars like New York Times bestseller Michael Port, Amy Mead, John Corcoran, Graham Baldwin, John Lee Dumas, Kate Erickson, myself, Nicole, a whole lot more. Learn everything from marketing your webinar to teaching and selling on one, and we're holding it in the beautiful MoPA Theater here in San Diego. Get your early bird ticket now for only $95 at webinarninja.co/live. That's webinarninja.co/live. Guys, there's so much I want to cover in today's lesson, so I'm going to jump right into it. I first want to say that if you're giving a presentation, whether that's a public speech or on a webinar, you don't have to have a PowerPoint or keynote slide behind you, but it can add some great value and a great dynamic. But I want to give you the first tip, and the first tip is the slides of your presentation are aids. They're not the presentation itself. You should be able to perform your presentation without the slides. The slides are there to supplement it. Don't rely on your slides. Your slides are there to augment your message. But in today's lesson, I'm going to show you how these slides can really add some incredible value to your actual presentation. But that's tip number one. A good slideshow should not be something your audience wants a copy of. If at the end of your presentation somebody says, "Oh, can I get a copy of those slides?" You know that those slides were really not the best because there was so much text on them, they want to review it. And if they can get the gist of your presentation by just reading your slides, then you're irrelevant. There's no reason for you to be up on stage. There's no reason for you to be giving the webinar. You can just email them the slides. So make sure you understand that. And with that in mind, know that you're going to use these slides to your advantage and they don't own you. The whole message, the whole presentation is not on the slides. So the next thing I want to get into is the power of constriction. You want to constrict what goes on the slide to allow you to present what it's all about. A good example of this is having a slide that's just purely an image. Recently, I was speaking at a podcast conference, Podcast San Diego, and one of my slides was just an image of Mark Maron, who is the host of a very popular podcast called WTF. He recently had President Obama on his show. And I had a picture of him because I wanted to drill in the point of, even though this guy's a comedian and he runs his podcast from his garage, there's a sense of professionalism on his show. And I went into the details of that point, but just the image gave people more context. It also showed them who I was talking about if they didn't know who Mark Maron was. But the point here is that if I would constrict myself to just one image or a headline with a few words, it allows me to be creative with how I present that slide, how I present that part of my presentation. So there's a power in constriction. Don't be compelled to put every single bullet point that you want to cover or that you're saying in your presentation on every slide. You should memorize those. Having a few bullet points is fine, but if you're reading off your slides or using them as reminders, you're not really giving a presentation. You're dictating a document. So I highly encourage you to restrict yourself to an image or maybe two on a slide, or a slide with a few words, or at most a headline and a couple points under it. My next strategy has to do with the number of slides you have in your actual presentation. Your presentation is not supposed to be a flip book. You shouldn't be going through slides every single second. This is distracting to the viewer, to the audience. Whether you're on stage or on a webinar, if you're flipping through slides every few seconds, it's very hard to focus on your message, what you're actually saying, what you're actually trying to convey. That's why I recommend a 3-to-1 ratio. And when I say 3-to-1, I mean every 3 minutes, you should have a maximum of 1 slide. So if you have a presentation of 30 minutes, try to have 10 slides or less. I know that seems challenging, but again, a lot of creativity comes out of constriction. You could do a lot in 10 slides. My next strategy or rule of thumb is every time you put something on a PowerPoint slide, on a keynote slide, ask yourself, is this absolutely necessary? Can I just say it? Can I just explain it? Why do I have to actually have it on the slide as well? Isn't that redundant? With the example of Mark Maron, I can't say a picture. I have to show a picture. So they can have a picture in their mind about Mark Maron in his garage producing his podcast. So it's not redundant. If I have one word or a powerful headline, I may say that headline, but it's for emphasis to have it on the slide as well. It's so important. It's the key ingredient to the presentation. But if everything I say is on the slide as well, the slides lose value. They lose significance. So think twice before you put something on a slide. Ask yourself, is this redundant? Can I just say this thing? Can I just illustrate this with my voice? Or is it a must-have? Do I have to have it on my slide? My next tip is there are no rules. A lot of people think that, what does a professional PowerPoint or keynote presentation look like? What about my branding? What about my header? What about my footer? What does my Q&A slide look like? Do I have to put my social media handles there? What about my contact email? It's whatever you want. There is no one way to do it. If you want people to tweet during your actual presentation, then put your Twitter handle, put a hashtag. But if you don't want them to do that, don't put it. If you want people to do something after the presentation, like email you, put your email. If you have a call to action, put your call to action. But if you don't put it there. Don't just do things because you think you have to. You don't. The other thing is have fun with this. Add your personality. Show candid pictures of yourself or maybe your friends. They don't have to be stock images. You want to add some music, add music. You want to insert a video, do that. The point here is that if you feel like it's going to contribute to the value of your message, then do it. But if it doesn't, you don't have to do it. Now, it doesn't matter if you use Microsoft PowerPoint or Apple's Keynote when it comes to creating great slide presentations. They both pretty much are the same. Don't get hung up on the actual software. Focus on the actual content. It does help, though, if you're on stage doing a public speech, to have a remote clicker so you can go through your slides without going back to your laptop. Also, if you're on stage, don't ever look back at your slides. Once you turn your back to look at the slides behind you, you've lost your crowd. You have your back towards them. This is something that I learned from Michael Port and Amy Mead, who are a great duo when it comes to public speaking and public speaking coaching. You don't ever want to lose your crowd, so make sure you're always facing them. You should know your slides. And remember, the less slides you have, the less you'll have to remember. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Guys, I got one more strategy, and that's you have to rehearse your slides. Rehearsal is where the magic happens. You want to be able to go through your slides and know the words that trigger the next slide. This gets a whole lot easier when you have, again, less slides. But you should know the order of your slides. You should know what came before that slide, what comes after. You should be able to go through the whole presentation in your head visually. And one of the ways to do this is to look at your script and put a star and asterisk right by where you're going to make a slide change. So when you're going through your actual script and your actual presentation, you're also rehearsing when you switch slides. And you should be able to do this without even looking at the slide. And I actually challenge you to do this. Don't look at your slide presentation. Have your laptop behind you. And you can print out your actual script with all the stars, or you can have it on your iPad or your phone, and go through your actual script, your actual presentation. You can read it, and go through your slides every time you see a star. And at the end of the presentation, go back and look at your laptop and see if you've made it to the last slide in order. It's a great way for you to rehearse and practice getting through your presentation along with your slides without looking at them. I said this before, but a lot of people use the presentation slides as cues to remind them what to say. It actually should be the opposite. What you say is a cue to change the slide. The script, the content, the words that come out of your mouth are what drive the actual presentation. And that should dictate when you should switch slides. All right, guys, that wraps up today's lesson, but that doesn't end today's episode. Today's Free Ride Friday, so I got to give away a free ride to the $100 MBA Training and Community. Let's see who this week's winner is. And the winner is Make the Leap. Make the Leap gives 5 stars and says awesome info in a short period of time. I love how these are quick little tips that can help you with professional life as well as personal life. It's great to listen to when washing dishes, doing yard work, or even on your commute. Love it. Thank you so much for that awesome review, Make the Leap. And thank you all for your amazing support, listening to the show, subscribing to the show, leaving us iTunes rating and reviews. It means so much to Nicole and I. Make the Leap your mission is to email us at contact@100mba.net so we can hook you up with a lifetime membership to the $100 MBA Training and Community. Every week, guys, we give away a free ride with our weekly random draw to anyone who's left us an iTunes rating and review. All right, everybody, I want to leave you with this. Sometimes technology is going to fail. I've spoken at major events where I had a slide presentation ready, but then there was no projector, so I couldn't even use my presentation. So I had to run through my presentation and do it without my slides. And I was able to do it really effectively because I knew my material. And I really encourage you to have that mindset. Sometimes you'll take your presentation from one laptop to another and the transitions don't look great. Just roll with it, try your best, and remember, your content is what matters. The visuals just help deliver it. All right, guys, I'll see you in tomorrow's episode, Q&A Weekends. I'll see you then. Take care.